Today, we are talking about the Slingshot, which is our product that teaches literature and writing mechanics to 15 to 18-year-olds. The Slingshot is in the same great tradition as our other literature and mechanics programs. So we have the Dart for ages 8 to 10. We have the Arrow for ages 11 and 12. We have the Boomerang, which I will talk about a little bit today, and that is for your 13 and 14-year-olds. We have Instagram happening over here, so I will occasionally look off to my left. But then our brand new product is for 15 to 18-year-olds. Woohoo! This is the Slingshot, and our very first book of the year will be Tale of Two Cities. So you can see it here. Let me show you all 5 books that we have slated. Whoops. That we have slated for this coming year. A Tale of Two Cities, Braiding Sweetgrass, The Secret Life of Bees, The Fellowship of the Ring, and Swing. Okay, here they are for everybody to see. And these books are actually such great reads, even for adults. In fact, they are so popular with adults that we are actually going to make it possible to discuss these books as adult home educators in our community space that we call the Brave Learner Home. I'm going to explain all of that to you, but let's start with the principles that make up our Slingshot product. So in Brave Writer, we talk about writing in 3 ways. We talk about the mechanical skills, using a pen and pencil or typing on a keyboard, right? Those are the skills of spelling, punctuation, transcription, being able to take what's in your brain and get it onto a screen or through a keyboard. Those skills are cultivated through reading. Literature is the primary way, but so are text messages, so is reading a website, so is reading the game chat going on a video game. Whenever we are engaged with writing and we're reading it with our eyes, we're decoding it inside of ourselves, we're actually improving our spelling, our punctuation, and our grammar. Because it's almost like being dropped into this world and learning to speak your original language. You're around fluent native speakers. The more you hear it, the more fluent you get. Reading provides kind of a similar soup, a similar universe for mastering the mechanics of writing. By the time your kids are juniors and seniors in high school, they have walked the 10-year plank, starting at about age 8, when they're first being introduced to reading and handwriting, all the way to the other end when they hit 18 and leave your home and go off into their adult lives, whether that's college or a trade or a career of some kind. During those 10 years, your kids are slowly developing their transcription fluency. So by the time they're at the Slingshot level, we expect that they're fluent readers and that they're actually pretty good at being able to spell and punctuate. That said, they're not perfect. I want you to think about your own writing right now. How many times when you compose an email, just as you hit send and see it leaving your inbox, you're like, I wrote H-E-A-R instead of H-E-R-E, the wrong kind of here. Oh no, I misused, a grammatical term. I was listening to one of my podcast guests who said mouses instead of mice, even though he's a professor, because occasionally our brains glitch like that. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with our fluency or even our skills. It just means that there are moments of momentary lapses where we're paying more attention to what we want to say than how well we transcribe it or how well we conjugate it in our own brains. So at the Slingshot level then, we are going to cover mechanics of writing, but maybe not the same way we did when your child was 8 or 10 or 12. We're going to notice those pesky hangers on, like accommodate. Does it have 2 C's, 2 M's, 1 M, 2 D's? We're going to look at some of those. We might look at language like the French language that's inside the text alongside the English language. We're going to talk about really interesting punctuation uses. For instance, in Lord of the Rings, written by a British author, J.R.R. Tolkien uses the semicolon in a way that Americans don't use it. Americans don't use semicolons before conjunctions, but the Brits do. So we talk about that kind of thing inside of our Slingshot handbooks that go with your readings. So when we think about our literature and mechanics program, what we're talking about is that finishing school for your child before they go off to college and their adult lives. We are helping them sort of solidify the skills they've been building over the last 8 years. Secondly, what we're really interested in and what makes the Slingshot so powerful at the end of high school is we want to train your kids to understand literary analysis. Now, whether or not your kids ever become English majors or fall in love with literature or go on to do movie reviews, that's really not the key here. Literary analysis is a way for your students to grow their ability to think critically about what they read. So a lot of you might be saying, I have never used my literary analysis skills as an adult, but I would be here to challenge that thought. When you watch a movie, when you listen to somebody tell you their story, let's say you meet with a friend over coffee and that friend is going to tell you that they went fishing. And now they're going to tell you how big the fish was. You are going to be interpreting all the clues about whether that person is a reliable narrator, whether they're going into hyperbole, whether or not you can trust their reporting. You're also going to experience the entertainment value of what they share with you. You're going to get their jokes. All of that comes from literary analysis experiences. We develop the ability to receive, engage, and analyze language because we start to engage with these tropes, with these literary devices. And high quality writing gives us just this amazing portal of entry so that we become skillful in communicating, in analyzing what we hear. You know, you might be listening to a news reporter and suddenly you're like, I see what he's doing. He is prioritizing the most important facts at the top of the story, and he's going to bury the lead, the thing that is the problem with the story. He's going to bury that and not reveal it till later. Or you might pick up bias. You might be able to identify what the agenda is. That's all literary analysis is. It's the capacity to notice themes, to notice the role of the narrator, to notice the arc of the plot, what you're being built up to, and then how you're let down. All of those devices are part of being critical thinkers, not just skilled English majors. So I want to make that clear right out of the gate. The other thing you'll notice is that your kids are going to really love reading the books and bringing that analytical mind to the movie version, because many of these books have movies, and those movies make judgments. The directors, the producers, the actors make choices of how to interpret the literature and bring it to the big silver screen. But here's what's amazing about that. Your kids might disagree with those choices. They might be like my kids, a bit of literature snobbery going on there, where they, rarely think the movie is as good as the book, right? Because they've erected in their own imaginations a kind of understanding of who the characters should look like, how those roles should be portrayed. But all of that goes to this ability to analyze, to not just take things at face value, but to deep dive and become more skillful at analyzing information as it comes to you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to open up the Slingshot and we're going to walk through its contents. Now, one of the things you should know is that we have a sample that you can download for free. It's 21 pages. It is beautiful. I will flip through it so you can see. And it is going to go over all the information I'm sharing with you today. So if you want to take your time, get a cup of tea, like me, have a cup of tea, sit down and page through the Slingshot, Good idea, because then you'll have a really firm sense of what this product can do for you. So the first thing I want you to see inside the Slingshot is something that we call the Quick Start Guide. Can you see that? Can you see that, Instagram? The Quick Start Guide. And what that does is we tell you where in the Slingshot guidelines, here's what they look like, where to find helpful information about copywork and dictation, how to modify the Slingshot for multiple ages and children, sample weekly routines so that it's easier for you to implement with other parts of your school program. Our week with Slingshot and our skills tracker, I want to show you those right now. Many of you ask for planning support, and we have now created it for you. As you can see, we give you a column for preparation and then a column for your teens to prepare and to follow through on. So over here, you can decide, you know, the prep, read the passage, review possible questions to ask the passage, read the what to note. And then across, we're going to have the teen read the passage aloud, ask the passage questions together, highlight in an array of colors, vocabulary, grammar, punctuation marks, and literary devices, etc. These planning pages are meant to help you have a shortcut. So you don't have to think ahead. We kind of know what's in every single one of our Slingshots. So you're able to go through and quickly check boxes and remind yourself of the value of what you're doing with your kids. Now, here's the good news. The Slingshot is written to the user. So whether it's a parent reading it who will then relay it to the teen, or it's the teen themselves, when you read it, you will read it as though you are the person who is going to benefit from the from the Slingshot. So that means this is a moment where you can start to encourage a little more independence in learning. And this planning tracker is going to help you and your teen to make the kind of progress that's measurable. So it's not just reading something and then kind of wandering around in a blank haze, right? Does that make sense? In addition to the weekly planner, we have a skills tracker. Now, these are not identical. The skills tracker includes all of the parts of speech, punctuation, and any other skills you want to itemize. And then we give you the opportunity to say if you're saving it for later, if you're in progress, or if you feel like your student or the teen feels like that they themselves have mastered that category. So for instance, proper nouns, common nouns, pronouns. Now, some of these your kids should already know pretty thoroughly. So what you might do is on that first Slingshot, go through and just get a sense, grab some highlighters and get a sense from your teen to see if they can highlight all the proper nouns in orange, all the conjunctions in blue, all the interjections in pink, and start to get a sense, where is it that they still have growth left over? They might go back through this skills tracker occasionally and just double check, gosh, do I really know how to use the ellipses? How effectively am I using colons? And then look for opportunities while you're reading, while you're using the Slingshot, to feature those in copywork and dictation so that your student is intentional about growing places where they still need to polish up those skills. So the weekly prep planner and the skills tracker are your good friends, and you will find them at the back end of the guidelines. These can be printed every month. The weekly prep planner can be printed for every week. So if those are helpful to you, make sure you use them. The second feature that I think is so great inside the Slingshot is something we call the spin and spiral. Now, the spin and spiral was inspired by a previous staff member, actually. We were asked by our customers to illuminate what they would be finding inside the dart, the arrow, the boomerang, now the Slingshot. They wanted like a scope and sequence. And you know, if you've been around Brave Writer at all, you know I'm not a big fan of telling parents what they should cover when, because developmental skills vary child to child. And we want to honor those skills. We don't want to rush them ahead or hold them back. So instead of telling you what you should be covering, we decided to show you that we spiral through grammar, literary devices, punctuation marks over and over again over the course of an entire school year. And the way that we wanted to show that to you was almost like if you can picture a washing machine, the spin and spiral, right? It's circulating, it's not checking boxes. So in our spin and spiral is what you will find in this issue of the slingshot or the dart or the arrow or the boomerang. So for instance, for the slingshot, for Tale of Two Cities, here's what you're going to find. We'll join descriptive forces with hyphens. We'll speak up through dialogue punctuation. We'll produce pauses and tack thoughts together with em dashes and colons and semicolons. We'll size up similes and metaphors. We'll promenade through punctuation fashion. We'll tiptoe through timelines and deep dive into historical context. We'll flank descriptive phrases and bring order to unruly lists with commas. We'll speculate over synecdoche and symbolism. We'll ponder parallels of doppelgangers and foils. We'll associate images and ideas with allusions, and we'll find what is lost through themes of redemption. That's an example. Now, each of the words that are featured here in bold, those are the items that we cover inside the slingshot over the 4 weeks. So you have that as a handy guide to remind you, oh yeah, this is where we did ellipses, or this is where we looked at this feature of literary symbolism. It's a way for you to have a shortcut and to remind you, in case, you know, you get further in the year and you remember, oh yeah, Tale of Two Cities did a really good job of doppelgangers. Let's go back and look at that description. So that's the spin and spiral. The next thing you need to know is that inside the slingshot, just like the dart, the arrow, and the boomerang, there are 4 passages that we select from the book, and there is 1 passage per week that we feature. That passage is usually excellent writing, and it will have some quality to it that we want to highlight. So for instance, it might be dialogue punctuation. This week's passage in week 2 of A Tale of Two Cities is focused on historical context. So we read this couple of paragraphs, then we talk about why the passage was selected so that you'll understand what was our psychology between how we thought about the passage and what we hope to teach from the passage. Then we give you notes called What to Note. The what to note portion is usually focused on grammar and punctuation. It stays more with the mechanics of writing. And in this case, you can see we're talking about spelling and vocabulary, exclamation marks, commas. Let's see, it's usually 3 or 4 pages. Then we go to something called How to Explore This Passage. How to explore this passage. This is usually 3 to 4 pages, all about writing craft and literary analysis. And inside the How to Explore the Passage, you might find a writing prompt called Try It, which is giving your student an opportunity to experiment with a literary device like alliteration or assonance or repetition of key terms. But we also like to give you something we call an inside scoop box, an inside scoop box. And inside the inside scoop, you are going to find, I'm going to read this to you because I thought it was helpful. It supplies insider information that you would find outside of the book, like cultural context, author background information, and other information such as how the book was adapted to the film to bring depth to that literary analysis. So we call this an inside scoop, and we do this research for you, so you don't have to. But then we also have something we call beyond the passage boxes, beyond the passage. Can you see that? And this provides additional content from the book beyond the weekly passage. So let's say we give you two passages or two paragraphs, for the week 2 passage, but the ideas, the historical context continues to be elucidated in the rest of the chapter. We're going to use this box to draw from more of the book to give you a fuller and richer understanding of what's happening. It expands the literary analysis, or it helps you explore a grammar convention in more detail. Does that make sense? So those two boxes are unique to the Boomerang and the Slingshot. And here's what you need to know. Our staff who writes the Slingshot, holy smokes, are they high qualified. These are professional writers who have taught, who have been active in the field of education and literature for a long time. Dawn, our director of publishing, said that sometimes when she reads their inside scoops and beyond the passage essays, they bring her to tears. They're so insightful and detailed and careful to communicate these really rich themes and ideas. So even for an adult, if you feel like, wow, I don't know how to do this, I've sort of lost touch with all that stuff I learned in college, this will bring you right back. It gives you kind of the heft that you need to have those richer conversations you really want to have with your kids. Now, in addition to these beyond the passages, I want to pull up one more thing to show you because I think they're so valuable. We have something that we call think piece questions. They look like this. Can you see that? They look pretty meaty, don't they? Really dense. That's because we're hoping that you're going to have big, juicy conversations with your teens about books. So, for instance, here's an example of one of the questions. Compare and contrast the lives of the French nobility to the lives of the French peasants in A Tale of Two Cities. Describe the balance of power between the two socioeconomic classes. How does Charles Dickens create both sympathy and aversion for each? Do you see what I'm saying? So we're actually inviting you to have some pre-made questions that will be possible for you to use even if you're not reading the book, so that you aren't just saying, well, did you like it? What did you like about it? What do you remember? You can actually invite more depth, more richness, and more conversation. But not only that, this year in Brave Learner Home, we're going to discuss these books with the adults, and we're going to use these questions. So imagine it's like a shortcut. You'll be having conversations with your peers about this wonderful book using those questions, and then you can come back and share that information with your teens and be able to enrich the conversations you have with them. What we hear all the time from parents is, I don't have a lot of time to do all this preparation, but I want my kids to have some independence, but also some really valuable insight. And you know, insight doesn't grow by itself. You have to put something in to draw something out. That's why school has a teacher in a class full of students. One of the dangers of high school homeschool is that we are so busy with our younger kids, or on the other end, so sick of homeschooling because it's our last child, we expect too much independence. And we do not provide our kids with the mirroring and the feedback and the joy that comes from depth in learning. So Brave Writer, we're trying to provide that to you, kind of give you the shortcut, give you what you need to be effective at this without a lot of preparation time, so that you and your kids can go get that cafe latte or your favorite frappuccino and sit together on a, Tuesday afternoon and chat with a book, with a guide, and just see what you find out together. It's not really about grades or even writing. It's making meaning for self. And that's really our goal. In addition to those think piece questions, we also recommend that your students keep what we call a Golden Lines journal. So they're going to pick a favorite passage from every book they read this year, and then they're going to write a little bit of a note about it. So maybe in their notebook, they'll have a 2-sentence golden line, and then they're going to write why they picked that line and date it. That's it. But by the end of the year, every book they've read will have a golden line, and it will act as kind of a diary or a journal of what your kids valued most about what they read. It's a very simple practice, but one that we've seen really pay rich dividends in the lives of our students. And then finally, because, it's not Brave Writer if there isn't a party. Now, I know your kids at 15 to 18, they're not looking to do dress up clothes and mud pies and all that stuff we do with, DART level kids. But we do still want to encourage book club party gatherings, right? So we call these gatherings. So for A Tale of Two Cities, some of our suggestions go like this: using some symbols from the French Revolution, creating a tea time with Lucy Manette, who is a hostess who is fond of hosting hundreds of visitors for early afternoon tea. We have some suggestions about how to talk about the revolution. We talk about going for a walk because Charles Dickens so loved brisk walking. We talk about shoe cobbling and give you some ideas of how to approximate that. So these are some suggestions to enrich a book club discussion. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I think will be helpful for you to know. My daughter, Johanna, when she was in high school, she was fortunate. Her father was a literature professor at Xavier and University of Cincinnati. So on Friday nights of all nights, I would bake brownies, and Johanna and her friends and her dad would sit in the living room and they would talk about books. And we did not do a whole lot of activities, but there was something about it being at night with brownies, with someone who knew the literature well enough to discuss it, that this became a real highlight for them. And of course, John was used to working with college and high school kids. So he knew how to find those sort of body shocking passages and themes to bring up with these 15 to 18-year-olds. So as you're thinking about your book club parties, think about it that way. This is not your, junior sister's tea time at 4 on a Wednesday, right? Elevate it somehow. Help it have the dignity of being grown up. If we were doing Lord of the Rings in my house, we'd all have pipes. That became our thing when we were reading Lord of the Rings, was smoking these pipes out in the backyard. It's fun, right? So give yourself permission to kind of explore those fun edges with your teenager. Okay. And then finally, we have now added to our dart, arrow, and boomerangs lined paper that is branded with the name of the product. Now, this might be less interesting to a teen, I don't know, but it might be the right paper to use for golden lines. It's certainly wonderful to have it as an opportunity to take notes. If you want to keep it all in a notebook, you could print a whole bunch of these. You could do your copy work and dictation, your golden lines, your notes, your answers to your think piece questions, and you would have this lovely journal of everything that you did together for the year for 5 books for the Slingshot. So that is what our Slingshots look like. And we have one for every book of the year. So A Tale of Two Cities, which, as you've already seen, fabulous book. It is considered Charles Dickens' masterpiece. Braiding Sweetgrass, my favorite book of the year, by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She is going to walk you through her Potawatomi Nation and her PhD in botany. Really fabulous book. The Secret Life of Bees, Sue Monk Kidd, and of course, a wonderful movie. So here's a good opportunity to compare and contrast. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, of course, Elijah Wood fan club right here. And naturally, one of my favorite authors of all time, Kwame Alexander, writing Swing, a brand new novel written in verse. So your kids get an opportunity to read poetry in a long form novel, right? So the Slingshot then is designed to make your life easier for 15 to 18-year-olds, to give them adequate training and preparation for college, to help them grow their critical thinking skills, to help them expand their vocabulary, deepen their skills in grammar, punctuation, and spelling, and to help them understand writing craft and why that's valuable to their education. I think you're going to love it. Now, for those of you who've asked me, how much of an English credit does this count for? It's 5 books. And if you do these over the course of the whole year, that's enough for literature. 5 meaty novels with all that copywork, dictation, engagement with discussion. My goodness, literature done. If you want to add an expository writing component, we have 2 ideas for you. One is purchase the College Prep Bundle and use our Help for High School program. That is our manual that teaches critical thinking and expository essay writing to your teenagers. We used the Allen and Bacon Guide to Writing as much of our source material. It is created, Allen and Bacon, by the way, is used in universities across America. It is designed to prepare your kids for college. In other words, what I had in mind when I wrote it was how they teach writing in college, so that it's not foreign to your kids. It's familiar by the time they get there. So Help for High School is that program. And if you combine it with the Slingshot, done. You have a year's worth of writing and literature for your junior or senior in high school. If, however, you've already done Help for High School back with the boomerang, or you have already taken the classes that go with that book that are similar to that book, we have a wide array of online writing classes for high school. We have essay, rhetorical critique and analysis, advanced composition, literary analysis, a whole wide array of fiction classes. And I encourage you to take a look at that syllabus, that list, and sign up. You will not regret it. Even the MLA research essay, which is like getting someone else to teach your kid the research paper. Highly recommend it. It's much nicer than having to do that yourself. Registration for summer opens on Monday at noon Eastern. We completely sold out fall. We completely sold out spring. So if you know what class you want, we urge you to sign up early. We have a whole slate of classes for summer. And then we will open fall registration on July 26th, which is a Monday. And that will, again, have an even bigger array of classes to choose from. But I cannot stress enough, our online writing program is so wildly popular. Many classes sell out on the first day, and we easily sell out the whole semester early in the semester. So if you are planning your year and you know what classes your kids want to be in, sign up early. Do it on the day we open registration and guarantee your space. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice. Now, you can roll the dice. Some classes will still have seats, but I just want to be very upfront and clear about that, because we get a lot of heartbroken emails, and I hate telling people, sorry, the class is full. All right. I am going to look now to see if we have any questions. I hope that was helpful. On Facebook right now, Dawn is there to answer your questions. And I am going to look at Instagram to see if there are questions here. Any that are on here, let me see. Oh, it's looking pretty good, actually. I think we're good. So I'm going to wind up because I don't want this to be more than a half hour. Thank you for joining me. The Slingshot is available in our store. Go to store.bravewriter.com to purchase the 5-book program, or purchase the College Prep Bundle if you'd like Help for High School plus the Slingshot and automatic free lifetime access to Brave Learner Home. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great afternoon.